Hi, my name is Roy Collin and welcome to the show. I've also got five podcasts: The Awakening Podcast, exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions; the Crypto Podcast, on about all things blockchain, NFTs, crypto; the Meditation Podcast, talking about all different types of meditation, but there's also meditations there from 1 minute to 2 hours. And the other one's the Learn Polish Podcast. So if you're interested in learning Polish, you can do that. And the other one is Speaking with Roy Collin. And I just have guests from around the world talking about either public speaking or also about their book or just general life in general. And you'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. I'm also a podcasting coach. And you see the QR code there, and it's also on my link as well. And if you're interested in actually going on some podcast shows, I'm helping people doing that. Or if you're interested in sponsorship, you can contact me. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com. He helps people with anxiety, stress, and addictions. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if you're successful. So be sure to check him out, DanielPacker.com. I hope you enjoy this week's show. Welcome to the Crypto Podcast. You'll find all the episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. My guest today, master investor, educator of real estate and crypto. He's got so many letters after his name. I thought it was like the alphabet. I was happy with mine, PMP and DTM. I see his and I'm like, whoa. It would take me an hour to read it up. I'm sure he'll tell us in a minute all of them. He's an author. I saw of two books, that might be more, but I came across two. Podcaster. Please welcome Josh Cadillac.
Roy, thank you so much for having me on, bud. Great to hang out with you.
No, thank you very much. I suppose let's start off with the alphabet behind your name, like how many
Sure.
qualifications. And I see behind you, there's a beautiful setup. So those listening, we're on Spotify video, BitChute and Rumble and YouTube, and you'll see the picture if you log in them.
Yeah, no, the alphabet soup, I suppose, came from the fact that I transitioned to real estate from other businesses. I was in restaurants, and I had a lot of commercial real estate, and I transitioned to becoming a real estate agent by virtue of what happened in 2008. I lost just about everything. Coming into the business, I knew that I knew it from the standpoint of how to invest myself, but now I was going to be handling other people's money, helping other people make that choice. And I've always felt like it's one thing to risk your own money, and it's a completely different level when somebody else's money's involved. My father told me when I was a kid, you could lose your own money, that's bad. You lose somebody else's money, that's unforgivable. You've got one reputation in life. You know, it's interesting talking about the crypto thing and the crypto community in particular. That's one thing that I wish more people in the crypto community would embrace, that you don't lose other people's money. It seems there's a great willingness to take an experiment with other people's money, and very little I don't know, remorse when they get it wrong. So for me, I didn't want to make those mistakes. So I took a lot of education up front. I was working constantly, but I was working a lot to take and make, survive, and at the same time learn what I needed to make sure that I wasn't making mistakes that could be avoided. So that's where the alphabet soup came from. Honestly, I could say its root is in fear. I was afraid of making a mistake. I want to make sure I got it right.
And I was kind of similar. I lost everything with real estate as well. Like it took a bit later when I came across the bond, but yeah, lessons learned. But I think just from what I went through, I'm a better person because of it, and I appreciate things a lot better. And you would never think it during the moment when you're losing everything, but it's a lovely journey. I'm just curious with you, do you kind of look back at it as a blessing?
You know, Roy, I'm so happy where I am. And I know I never would have gotten here unless I had gone through there. So yes, there's a country song that was very popular years ago that said, "God bless the broken road that led me straight to you." So that was part of the broken road that I needed to go through to get where I am today. And I genuinely feel like where I am today is doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's a great place to be and a great feeling to have.
So with the crypto, so you might just tell me your crypto journey first, when you first heard about it and how you kind of got into it.
Oh, this is great. I was on a podcast just like this. My broker, my real estate broker, a good friend of mine, he has me on his podcast because, as it turns out, I have an opinion or two, I guess. And we're doing the podcast. We're talking about real estate, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, to all of our millions of listeners," he loves to say that. He definitely doesn't have millions of listeners. To all of our millions of listeners, he said, "This weekend I'm going to be at this crypto convention, and this is where it's going to be in whatever." And then he looks at me and he always calls me by my last name because I think years ago when he met me, he forgot my first name. He says, "Cadillac, you should come." I'm like, I don't know anything about crypto. I'm happy to learn something new. Sure. I said, not a problem. I'm happy to go. He says, you should do a class on crypto. I'm like, well, wait a second. In order to do a class on this thing, I actually have to know something about it. I said, I don't know. I don't talk about things that I don't know. He says, don't worry. I have a bunch of people that are like really hardcore that know this stuff. Like he didn't know it, but he knew they knew it. And so that's how my crypto journey started. I went to a crypto convention, thoroughly lost, walked in with a million ideas. Like, why would anybody take not real money? Like, like starting from that standpoint. So wait a second, it's digital, so you can just hit Control C, Control V, and copy paste. Like, you know, and shortly thereafter, I started to learn some of the things that especially with Bitcoin made it such a beautiful concept that this thing is just running on its own and it's doing what it does with no intervention. It was as a person who's got a good background in economics and stable money, the idea of gold standards and what the benefits of that were and how it changes and money supplies expanding and all the stuff that we see, especially in an inflationary market like we have today. Um, I came in just before that, and so for me, I was like, this is potentially a better solution than anything we've ever seen before, and it solves a lot of problems. And I remember this clearly, the same feeling, because my father was an investor and he was very heavily involved at the beginning of the internet stocks. It was the same thing. Nobody knew how to value them. What's the reason why there's so much volatility? Nobody knows how to value us. They know it's a good idea, but they don't know what value to place on it because there's not a history, right? And so for me, there's this fascinating component coming from my background as a real estate investor, running a real estate investment fund, having invested in all kinds of stocks and real estate. We're always looking at history to figure out where to go from where we are today, right? Well, the problem with crypto and the problem with the internet stocks back in the day was there was no history. You didn't know how to value it, right? And so I think that was kind of the beginning of my journey and the fascinating process of like getting my head wrapped around, well, there's obviously a good idea here. How good an idea is it? And how do we value that? That was probably the really beginning, the genesis of this whole thing. And then figuring out the piece that kind of still is a bit of a mystery, how to do this well with real estate because of the nature of the type of asset that cryptocurrency is. It's especially when it comes to something like Bitcoin, that long-term store of wealth potential that it seems to have. Nobody's going to liquidate their gold holdings to go buy an ice cream cone, but they would liquidate gold to go into a different investment type. And because real estate is that high price point investment type, the likelihood of it being used, and it's already happening quite a bit, where real estate is being, or cryptocurrency is being used to fund real estate transactions, it presents a market that is obviously going to have demand for people that know how to do this. And so that's what we've been doing. That's the classes that I've written, that I've gotten approved for continuing education for real estate agents, is classes on how to use crypto for real estate, how to facilitate those transactions, and how to do it legally, as every state's laws. I don't think there's any state that I know of in any of the 50 of the states that don't have some hurdle that's specific to overcome when you try to do a transaction from start to finish in cryptocurrency. So yeah, that's kind of the beginnings, I guess.
And I mean, I think with the fraud, because it probably happened when you kind of lost everything, you realized the amount of fraud that went on. Like they turned off the taps, the bankers doing fraud, the courts doing fraud, and like the crypto, the blockchain, Bitcoin came out of that. And to stop all this kind of thing, and the fact that you're in real estate now and you're kind of connecting the two. So one thing I always like to ask my guests is, who do you think created it? Because I'm getting so many different answers, and I'd love to know yours.
I really don't know. And to me, I think I almost love the romance of not knowing. I think that not knowing actually makes it better than if we did know. And only from the standpoint of, if I knew who did it, it would give me a reason to mistrust it more. Not knowing who did it gives us this thing, this unicorn that basically runs itself, governs itself, and well, even the hackers want to get paid in it because they can't figure out how to hack it, right? And so it's, I don't know. I'm equivocating. I'm not taking maybe the guess that you want, but I think I choose to live in a land where I don't know, and I hope we never find out.
Oh, I love that. I love that answer. So with kind of wallets then and exchanges, what's your kind of recommendations?
Um, it depends on the savviness of the investor, right? It depends upon the savviness of the person that's involved. I mean, obviously, you keeping any kind of money on any kind of a hot wallet to me is I'm finding it riskier and riskier every single day. I had a gal whose name I won't mention, but was a huge help in writing the classes. Amazing. The reason why I won't mention her name is because even she got a bunch of Ethereum stolen off a trust wallet just off of her cell phone, and she doesn't even know how it happened. I mean, just somebody did it. So I think cold storage is really where you have to live. And I think especially if you're going to be taking and here's the knock, right? The big knock with crypto is it's the kind of thing where you can buy it, hold it, you can maybe stake it. The problem is most of the places that you've tried to stake crypto have had, what do we want to call it, trust issues. A lot of them have gotten burnt out. So you don't even know, like you're going to get paid 5, 6%, whatever it's going to be that you're going to make, right? If they continue to exist, if they continue to actually pay you back, which means the risk profile of that is significantly higher than the 5 or 6% I can now get on a CD in the bank. So the appeal of this is kind of uh, more questionable than it's been. For me, the right play, if you're going to hold crypto and you want to hold crypto long term, is the use of the crypto mortgage, which allows you to take your crypto position, borrow against it for cash, use that cash to buy real estate up to 100% loan to value. And now they're holding the crypto in an escrow account for you. You still own it. It's still yours. It's still just pledged collateral. But in doing so, you have the benefit of the real estate's cash flow that it's throwing off, the real estate's appreciation, plus you're still participating in the upside of the crypto. Because otherwise, what do? I buy my Bitcoin, I look at it, it looks at me. I look at it, it looks at me, right? I have to hope that it goes up in value. But I mean, I'm sitting here like waiting for something to happen, as opposed to having my real estate, watching my real estate much more consistently appreciate. Whereas the Bitcoin, it goes up in value. It's again, a broken road to get there, right? Um, and so I love the idea of having the two appreciating assets and the idea that we can now take and collateralize that crypto position to take and have access to other asset types and kind of broaden the portfolio without putting us in tremendous amounts of risk. Because the crypto mortgage, the thing I love about it is 200% collateralized. They don't have margin calls like a traditional margin call unless that crypto falls like 80, 90% its value. So you're fairly safe. So for those reasons, these are the things that I know it's kind of a little further than the question that you asked.
No, but it's very
But
interesting because I wasn't aware that you could actually do that. So that's, yeah, very good.
yeah, so what's the best wallet for me? Somebody else's wallet where it's pledged with a smart contract as collateral on a loan against other assets where I have both assets that I'm using on the same money. That to me is the best place to have the money, or to just take and have it in cold storage in a safe in your house. That's it.
Very good. And with, like, say, the course then, because like you were doing real estate and you're doing this, because what happens is, like, you're in this for the long haul. But what I noticed, especially on social media, is like Bitcoin drops or any of them drop, crickets. The minute it goes back up, they're all out there trying to get you to buy. And I just like, you just know they're not the right people to have it. It's like the people that are there, whether it's up or down, are the people that you should
Yeah.
be trusting.
Well, I think that there's a couple of things that we can glean from that. One, Roy, I have to say that some of the nicest people I've met are in crypto, and some of the lowest integrity people that I've ever met are in crypto. And the folks that are the low integrity people have really spoiled that. They've really slowed the growth of this thing a lot. They have added a lot of risk and uncertainty and bad experiences. They've placed a lot of bad taste in the consumer's mouth in general for this thing that I think in general could make the world a much, much better place if it was let to do what it needs to. And I think the other piece of this is a lot of the volatility in the price, especially of something like Bitcoin, is driven by exactly what you're saying. And so theoretically, we've gone through an inflationary cycle. You would expect Bitcoin as this, deflationary asset, that the price of it would have consistently gone up throughout this, yet it didn't do that. Although if you look at its valuation right now from the beginning of the year, things are looking pretty good for Bitcoin, right? But the reason why you don't see Bitcoin behaving like gold would, let's say, where it's like, oh, there's inflation, the price of gold is going to go up, it's as certain as the sunrise kind of thing, is by the nature of the groups of investor types that are in crypto, right? You have one group that's like, this is a great idea. I'm in for the long haul. I don't want to hear about it. Don't want to turn off the noise. I'm dollar cost averaging and buying every day, or like I've got my limit orders in and I'm buying it when it's cheap, right? And then you got the folks that are sitting here and just playing it like it's the fifth race at the local racetrack, right? They're just taking and placing their bets. And there's our folks that are out there absolutely manipulating and playing the market. And so those groups right now are the large enough stakeholders that you get all this artificial manipulation in the price. It's not really behaving as a straight currency would. That's a deflationary currency in an inflationary market. We would have anticipated the value of Bitcoin to have definitely improved from its highs to the dollar over this period of time. And I think that the piece that's kind of the unspoken is that the inflation of Bitcoin that occurred by the free money that was given away and all of the exuberance that there was with all the hype, that hype took and drove a lot of money there into it. And we didn't know what the real valuation to the dollar should be prior to the inflationary market to see how Bitcoin really responded throughout that. So I think that's kind of the thing, like I want to make the case. It's a great hedge against inflation, except if you bought it in 2020 and you were holding it right now, you're actually down probably a bit. And so that's kind of, I think, you have to answer the question. If you're going to take and be a disciplined investor in this, then you're going to have to ask why it didn't behave the way the economics tells you something like this should. And I think one of the big reasons why is the nature of the people, the not so good people that are investing in this thing.
I mean, like when you see the likes of BlackRock getting into Bitcoin, and I mean they manipulate all the markets, and just seeing how a lot of them have done, what they do with the currencies as well, and it's like a big game, and people lose their life savings. But I think if you're in it for the long haul, you protect yourself.
Absolutely, you just kept buying. That was the right play. You kept buying all the way up and all the way down, because that's one of the cool things with something that's very volatile. I'll take the middle of the growth. If it goes up, I'll take half of that. I'm okay. I don't need to be that greedy. I'll take half of what the upside is if the upside is big enough. And I think with Bitcoin and some of the others, there's still that real upside is there. So yeah, but I mean that's the thing. It's what we have to always keep in mind, and this is something I learned a painful way as a guy that invested in a whole bunch of these other ideas that sounded great, man, and I was into this one and into that one. The only reason why any of them are here is because of what Bitcoin has done, right? And Bitcoin has been the test case to prove all of this. Everybody else, I mean, who's the next biggest dog down? Ethereum, even so, we don't have the same certainty. We don't have the same certainty. It's huge. It would be crazy if it went away or something, but the next big idea could come along and unseat it, right? Whereas the thing that Bitcoin is doing is just this slow, steady climb with adoption. And nobody else is really, to my mind, come close to doing the work necessary to get people to go from, wait a second, electronic money to, oh, Bitcoin, yeah, no, that's good stuff. That gap that has closed, that's the psyche gap. It can't be overstated in my mind. That's a really a tremendous amount of heavy lifting that Bitcoin did to get us to where we are today.
So, like the fact that you're heavy into real estate, and I mean, I was doing it as well, and like I would love to see more of this embraced, even in the development stage, the sale. Like one of the things that I don't like, I mean, if it depends on how much developments you've done or even renovations and everything. There's a lot of fraud as well in that side of things.
Oh
And
my
I,
God,
I
yeah.
would love to have a system of full traceability based on your ID that a guy can't open up as company B in the morning. How can you see yourself, the two connecting? What would you like to see and what have you seen that's actually in the pipeline?
Um, well, I mean, if we're talking about from the fraud standpoint, it's going to wind up being a regulated thing. I mean, they've already got the stranglehold on things with the anti-money laundering, AML, and KYC stuff. That unless you're mining the crypto or you're a really good, super smart computer guy, there's not a lot of ways in my country that you're getting crypto that they don't know you have it. I think the thing that if you're talking about what I see, that's the thing that gets me really excited about blockchain, crypto, and all this stuff is going to be the idea of tokenizing real estate. Um, I think the idea that we could take and change the syndication model that exists right now, where I'm trying to raise a few $1,000,000 to take and then go borrow several $1,000,000 more from the lender to take and bring down this $20 million project. So I'm going to raise 6, and then I'm going to take and go borrow 14 to bring this project down. Well, if I'm doing that, I want as few investors as I possibly can because of the reporting and because of all the stuff that's involved with doing that. That's the current syndication model, which means you've got $1,000,000 to invest. Well, my minimum in is 600,000. You can get involved in one project then if you got your $1,000,000. If that's where the average level of these projects are. Well, with tokenization, almost all of that reporting, almost all of this stuff gets done on an automated basis by smart contract. I'm no longer paying you. I'm paying your tokens. Whoever the holder of your tokens is, that's who gets paid. So the problem with the syndication model, one of the big problems with real estate, the biggest issue with real estate, let me put this out there for everybody. So if you don't know this, understand the big dirty with real estate. The problem with this type of investment is liquidity. All right. It is an illiquid asset. If I have Bitcoin and I want cash, I can liquidate my Bitcoin position like this, and I can get cash in very short order and be able to pay my light bill. With real estate, I've been in the position, Roy, so many times I've got tens of millions of dollars of real estate, but how to pay the light bill this month is a bit of a challenge, because even though you own it, how do you get the money out to do what you need to do? And so that is the real estate investor's challenge. This is even worse in the existing syndication model because in order to sell my position, so let's say you invested your money in our deal to buy this $20 million project, you want to get out, Roy, you have to go to our partnership agreement, and there's this very arduous process of how you can liquidate your position. You have to offer it. You have to call everybody together. You have to offer it to everybody, typically their chance to buy you out. Then if there's going to be somebody that you're going to bring in to buy your position out, they have to take into evaluation and see if it makes sense, because obviously if you sell it at a discount, it makes what we have looks less valuable, whatever. There's a whole bunch of mess associated with it. With tokenization, you don't have to ask anybody anything because you're not really the partner. You are, but you're not. The tokens are the partner. The token is basically almost like its own corporation that's a partial owner in the operation. So as the person that sets up the syndication, my relationship is with the tokens. The tokens get the reporting, everything happens to the token. So if you decide to sell half of your tokens to this person and 2 of them to this person, whatever, that's up to you. You don't have to ask anybody. You can raise liquid capital. The benefit of this to me, Roy, and this is the reason why I'm bringing this up, and I think it's so game changing, is the reasons for me to limit the number of partners I have is largely done away with in this model, which means I can lower from 600,000 as the cost threshold to entry as low as I really want to. I could theoretically have $10 tokens. Well, what happens when you have a $10 token? What's the biggest reason why people can't invest in real estate right now? It's the cost threshold to get in. You need 50 grand, $60,000 to, if it's going to be an investment property, you're going to need, 25, 30% down to buy it. Well, now you don't need it. And this really kind of gets driven home because the first book I ever wrote was that Roadmap to the American Dream. It's a book about how money works. Because when I went to school, they never taught me any of that. Like, I love it when I have my people that immigrate to America and they're like really worried about the system. I'm like, you don't know how the system works? Don't worry about it. Nobody that lives here knows how it works either. You got to you got to go find somebody, because you go to take a degree in just about anything, they don't tell you anything about how money works, right? So one of my passions is I go to schools, I go to high schools, and I try to teach kids this stuff, at least get an appetite in their mouth for how investing works, because that's the group that's gotten ahead in this country, right? The folks that invest, they get ahead. The folks that want to just take and go paycheck to paycheck, they don't. They're always struggling, right? And what they do, Roy, and this is the thing that crushes my soul, right? I'm going to go up there. I'm going to tell them, hey, guys, look, you got to find a way not to spend everything you get. You got to find a way to squirrel some away and invest it, right? And keep investing. You got to underconsume. They'll give me a gift card to Starbucks, a $15 gift card. The administrator will, and say, give this to the kid that does the best job answering questions. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to come up here and I'm going to tell these kids to find ways not to spend. And you're going to give me another way for them to spend money. That this is the solution, right? Roy, what kind of a game-changing world would it be if instead of a $15 gift card, I could give them $15 of an appreciating asset that's throwing off positive cash flow? I could say, here is a small ownership stake in that hotel on the corner of this. You can go see something that you own a piece of. Because in this country, when they do studies, the number one investment tool of the poor in this country, when they ask the poor what they invest in, the answer is lottery tickets. If we could lower the cost threshold to entry and fundamentally change that, well, one, the lottery wouldn't be too happy about it, but I'm not really worried about the lottery. They're not my primary concern. But we could actually get more people participating in the thing that has made this thing make so many people so much money, which is the use of making money available for other people to take and do good things with. I think it's a good thing, and that to me is the area that my focus is, obviously because of my real estate bent, but that's the area for me where I think that we could really make some major world and life change for people, getting people involved in making more real estate available at a lower price threshold to a greater array of consumers.
Very good. And with like sales agents, because I hear on the Patrick Bet David recently, they're talking, I know there's something going on in the States about the commission side of things and everything, but I know that on both sides of the fence is like 3%, which means there's a 6% on, especially on a big investment, which is massive. That usually, like in Ireland, it was like 1 to 2%. In Poland, it's like up to 3 maybe, but it's just on one side kind of thing. And can you see the same thing, that it'll, like, the agents will work with it kind of token because they'll find the buyer as well? Or can it all be done on a platform and eliminate the agents? Where do you see this going?
It's a really good question. It's kind of a big question, because on the commercial side, Roy, the 6 number has never really been the number. So like if I'm an agent, I have a buyer, let's say you're my customer, you want to go see a property, right? The first question I'm going to go find the property. The first question I'm going to do is I'm going to call the other agent and ask them if they're offering a commission. Because on the commercial side, that commission has never been guaranteed. On the residential side, that's where the lawsuits are involved, and that's what's gone on with the whole big NAR thing that everybody's talking about. They have required, in order for a property to be listed using their system, the MLS, which is, the way that properties get found, it's got pretty much a stranglehold on the industry. In order to be listed there, the listing agent, has to offer a compensation to the other side, right? That compensation has never been a fixed amount. It's always been negotiable and whatever, but that's the rules, right? So the reason why I think that doesn't go away, there's a couple of things. One, and there's been a lot of talk when I would go to crypto events about how, technology is going to eliminate everything in virtual reality. Here's the thing, Roy. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you would never buy a house without going inside of it. I don't care how good the VR rig is or whatever, because you and I both know the sense of cat pee smell that we get walking in the door, no VR rig is going to give that to us, right? And so it's just too big an asset type, and I do it infrequently enough that I'm going to invest the time to physically go there, which means if people are physically going to go there, somebody physically has to let them in. Now, the question is that the listing agent and we eliminate buyer's agents in their totality? Well, let me ask you a question, Roy. Do you want the person that works for the other side to be the one negotiating your side of the deal? Yeah, right. Wait, you have a long-standing relationship with the seller, and now you're going to take and do an agreement for me? Uh, and so this is the place where it seems to make sense the buyer who doesn't do this every day would want somebody on their side representing and protecting them. On the listing side, when I go to get the listing, I'm going to tell the seller, hey, look, if you don't want to offer a co-brokerage commission, that's your choice. But understand, you're eliminating a huge swath. The vast majority of buyers are going to be unable to buy your property because if they're going to want representation, they are going to need to pay for that representation out of pocket now. The way we do it currently, the commission gets wrapped up in their mortgage, right? So because it's a seller concession, basically, they don't have to pay for their real estate commission for their buyer's agent out of pocket. They pay, if they're putting down 20%, paying 20% of that commission out of cash. The rest is coming with borrowed money, and it's wrapped up over 30 years in the rest of the life of the mortgage in that home. If you are a buyer and you have buyer side commission, the mortgage laws in the United States of America do not allow you to wrap that up into the financing of the home, which means if you have a $35,000 down payment to get into the house and the commission is another $10,000, well, you have to come with $45,000 instead of $35,000. The biggest limiting factor of how much people can buy is how much cash they have. And that's going to take a lot of folks that could be potential buyers, Mr. or Mrs. listing customer. That's going to take them out of the market for your home, which means your home is going to experience less demand than it could otherwise see, which means we would expect it would result in a lower final sale price. That, to me, Roy, is the case that is to be made to take and keep the co-brokerage commission and have it be maybe it's less than what it's been traditionally, but have it be a meaningful enough number because it needs to incentivize a buyer's agent to go show that property. And so that would be my counter to it. I mean, worst case scenario, the residential side turns into what the commercial side has been, which there's never been a guarantee of commission. And I mean, on the commercial side in America, you get to the day before closing, the odds of your customer telling you that, hey, you've got to give me half your commission back, it happens all the time. Happens all the time. So the idea that they're taking the residential side, which has been very cookie cutter and very sweet and cuddly, and kind of showing that as the entire real estate market, it's not really an accurate reflection of how it currently kind of goes.
Good. What I've heard you talk about, and it's something I kind of look at myself, is kind of a lifetime customer, that if you lose the customer, you feel kind of like in Poland. I mean, I'm Irish. In Ireland, most people try to have the customer for life. I noticed here in Poland, it's like shaft them, move on to the next person. They never look for the long-term vision. But I know it goes on around the world, but it's very big here. But I heard you talking about it, and I think it's very important. So you might just touch on that.
Well, I mean, I think that's very much a cultural thing. Countries that have been exposed to communism, in my experience, are much more about just getting ahead for today and let's deal with tomorrow. In fact, even I read a lot of books. I read even a lot of fiction. You'll see that very much in any Russian literature from anything from the eastern part of Europe. Their literature has this like sense that if you're not super careful, you're getting taken advantage of. Like everybody's out to get you. And I think across the world, there's kind of a spectrum of how the different cultures are with that. So like in Ireland, you're saying it's a much more long-term oriented, like you take care of your customers, you look out for your name. And maybe the communities are also a little bit smaller. And so there's a sense that everybody kind of knows you a little bit too, which is a thing. Like, if you do something to this guy, this lady over here is going, I've known you since you were 6. How dare you? Like as the pond you play in gets bigger, there's less of that accountability to people. And there's 2 reasons why people do the right thing. They have integrity, or they don't want to get shamed by people seeing what they did, right? When the pond gets big enough, nobody's really there that knows you well enough to shame you for what you did so much. You're not worried about all your neighbors ganging up and running you out of town on with a pitchfork kind of thing. And so then it's only left to your personal integrity. And I think there's a strong lack of integrity that goes around. And I think that there's a lot of business models that incentivize that. Win today and don't worry about tomorrow. We can replace the customer easily enough by more advertising. And so this is the reason why you'll see businesses like car sales. You see businesses like real estate, where you have a lot of people that come in, they take off like meteors, and they burn out because that constant need to go replace the customer, that constant having to chase, that constantly having to be up is such a tough thing. I think, and I was brought up, you do things one way and one way only. When they've done business with you, they would never do business with anybody else ever again. My industry, my real estate industry, currently has a 12% customer retention rate. Now, let's be clear, Roy. A typical customer, real estate customer, you're going to work with them somewhere between 3 and 6 months is the average, depending on the type of business. If you're working with sellers, even time you meet them, they get the house ready to sell and sell it. If you can't make the case that they should never work with anybody but you in 3 to 6 months, how bad do you have to suck at what you do? I mean, seriously. My dad had a car guy that he used to use. My father's Mr. Cadillac, right? My father used to buy a new Cadillac every single year, all the way up until 1975. And he always went to one guy down here in Florida where I live. He had one guy who was a sales guy. He always took care of him. That's what he was. Hey, I go there. I go to Lippy. Lippy takes care of me. That was it, right? There was a period there from 75 to 89 where he didn't buy another car, 14-year hiatus. Comes back into the market to buy a new car. Guess who the first person he goes to see is? He goes to see Lippy, because that's the way it was. He had a guy. So I think the question that I ask is not what do I need to do to close the transaction? Because if I close the transaction, I lose the customer. I now have to go through the time, aggravation, and expense to do everything I needed to do to earn that customer in the first place. Plus, I haven't done a good thing. Let's be honest. I mean, to me, that's the real reason. I'm trying to take it to be the practical. The real reason is I don't want to do business that way. But my industry, real estate, it always is about incentivizing closing the transaction. They want to know how good an agent you are. They always say, oh, how much volume did you do? How many transactions? How many size did you close? How much gross commission did you earn? I don't care. I think that's a bad metric. I want to know how much of the business you close came from people you did business with before, because that tells me the way you do business. If you do business the right way, they come back. And there is no higher compliment that somebody could give you than to say, I've worked with you before and I want to do it again because I like the way it went so well. And that's kind of the place, Roy, where I find myself almost as a little bit of a voice in the wilderness in this industry, because this industry that I'm in is very much a numbers industry as far as just sheer volume, getting as many warm bodies. I mean, the reason why NAR lost the lawsuit in my mind is because of their push for just getting in as many people as they can to be in the group as agents, collect that money from the dues and focus on volume as opposed to focusing on quality. I told somebody years ago, you can choose to be a Toyota or a Ferrari. How many people drive Toyotas? Everybody. How many people drive Ferraris? Not many. It's a very select few, right? I'm okay being the outlier. I'm okay being different and running my business differently than what the mainstream says. And the cool thing for me is, Roy, I haven't spent a nickel in advertising in a decade. All of my business comes from past business. My people just come back to me over and over and over again. I don't have to, that whole segment, it's 30-40% of the work for most agents of advertising. It's not something I have to take and worry about, which means I get to hang out with you and talk to you instead of being here working on a marketing piece to keep the plate spinning, because as fast as I bring the customers in, I piss them off and lose them on the back end. It's just not worth it.
And like, as you were talking about the cars, I remember, like, I bought a few new cars and there was times where you'd have to fill the tank because you wouldn't get down to the end of the road. You're after buying a brand new car and they wouldn't even
Yep,
put $2 into it. And it's like, I was like, that is so short-term vision.
it is. Because you know what? If you did right by me, like, here's the thing. A car guy is a perfect one. If you go to the car guy and you look at this car, you really like it, and you're like, guy's like, look, don't get this one, right? What you don't know is we just rolled the odometer back on it 1,000 miles because we've been using this car to shuttle people around. And it's actually last year's car, even though we're saying here's the car to take. This one right here, nobody's touched it. It just came in today. Here's everything that's going on. And you check it, and it's got a full tank of gas. The mileage is perfect. You could tell nobody's even, the new car scent is the strongest you've ever smelled. And the guy takes and does right by you on the deal. He says, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do for you in this one. All right. Just do me a favor. Tell your friends I did right by you. Would you send people to that guy?
Absolutely.
You would. All day, every day. Why? Because here's the secret, Roy. Everybody wants to know a guy. All right? I'm originally from New York. In New York, you need a plumber. And I know a good plumber. Say, Roy, you need a plumber. Roy, I got a guy. Let me tell you, you call Sal. You tell Sal I told you to call. You say my name. Sal will take good care of you. Right? Everybody wants to be the person that knows somebody. How bad are the people that we work with that there are so few people in our world that we actually would say that about? Because here's the thing, Roy. When I say to you, hey, go see Sal, I know my reputation with you is tied to what Sal does. If I can't trust Sal to come in and do a good job for you, I can't recommend Sal because I value our friendship, right? But if I know Sal is as straight a shooter as they come, I can send you to send Sal your way, and I know what's going to happen is it's just going to make our friendship that much stronger. Because once again, what Sal does, Sal's ability to come through ties together with my ability to come through. Josh sends me somebody, he's always good, right? And so that's kind of this integrity component of this. It's back to integrity. And I think it's just an important part, a big missing piece of how we do business in this world. And what makes maybe doing business in Ireland a nicer experience than doing business in Poland, as you're mentioning right now.
So the two books that I've seen, right? You've Clothes for Life and you've The Roadmap to the American Dream. One thing I can say, because I always check it out, is they're all 5-star ratings, just which is a serious compliment because no matter, you'll always have haters, but for some reason you don't. So congratulations on that straight away.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate it.
So you might just let people know, but I mean, they're mainly real estate focused. The two of them books, yeah.
Sort of. Roadmap: The American Dream was so my road was I didn't go directly to college out of high school. When I finished high school, I was like, I am never writing a stupid paper about something that means absolutely nothing ever again. I'm done. Roy, I'm done. Right. And so I walked out and I said, I'm a free man. I already had business interests going. I was already investing. I said, I'm not going to do it. Right. And then I got to be in my 30s, had that reset in 2008 where I lost just about everything, built it back, was going again, wasn't quite where I was, but was well on my way. And I said, you know what? I'm older. I've settled down. My animus to education has kind of cooled a little bit. Let me go back on my own dime. I'm not going to borrow any. I'm going to go pay out of pocket, go to college and see what I missed. I like to learn. I love to read books and all. Let me go see if I go in with this, heart wide open to education, what I could pick up from, this bastion of higher learning that's supposed to be such an amazing experience. Wow. Do they have a good PR department? Because I got to tell you, man, what a waste of time that was. I went in there and I was blown away at how poor, not so much the scholarship, but just the general understanding of how the world worked existed amongst the professors. They had all these opinions, but none of it actually tied together with like how the world really worked. And I'm like, you're telling me I should think this way, because they were very much telling me you need to think like this. And they were just like obvious holes. And so one of the biggest pieces that was missing was there was absolutely no discussion about how money worked and investing and all that sort of thing. And so to me, I knew, looking at charts and having read what I've read, that the investor class has routinely gotten ahead. If you're in a country that has good, stable laws, a relatively low cost to borrow money, your investor class is typically going to outperform just about every other group. I don't care if they're doctors or lawyers or whatever. If they consistently invest, they're the ones that clean up. And so I wanted to give people like the tutorial of, hey, look, here's all the stuff they never told you in school you needed to know. Like, here's how insurance works. Here's how amortization works. Here's how investing works. Here's how time value of money works. Here's how all of these concepts work. And here's how you use them in these different types of investments. Largely, obviously, a huge bent to real estate, because I'm not going to lie, guys. Totally thumb on the scale to real estate. I'm a big fan of real estate as an investment. But yeah, it wound up being a kind of a love letter to the young guy, the young gal out there that's just trying to figure out how to get ahead, and have somebody actually explain the rules to the game to them. That's what the roadmap was about. And Close for Life truly is a book for anybody that's really in sales. I mean, it's definitely written to real estate, but I hadn't done it. It's one of those things. I don't know if and what you've written, Roy, but you learn too in the process of writing. And at the beginning of that book, I did a section on standards, on having standards and finding your standards and figuring out what those are. And going through that myself was such a helpful tool to take and just make more clear the direction of who I want to be and what I have to do every single day to be that guy. In a business, when you're in sales, especially like real estate, where you don't have a direct boss, there is so little guidance that puts you in that role of being CEO of your own life and having to take responsibility for not only getting the work done as the staff, but also being the CEO that lays out what that work needs to be, and making sure that you're holding yourself accountable and making sure you're turning out the product every day, even when you don't feel like it. Yeah, that was a really good part of just thinking through that process and suffering my way through what the full ramifications of that are and trying to get it right. So yeah, that was a labor of love too, I suppose.
Just finally, you're a podcaster. Know your shit, I think, is with Josh Cadillac. So you might let people know what it's about, and then finally where they can find you as well.
Sure. So one of my biggest complaints is in real estate that I shouldn't be telling everybody this, but I'll tell you, Roy, and maybe you can just let it work its way out there. If you want to embarrass a real estate agent, typically, the easiest question to ask them is, so what's good about real estate? The people that sell it don't actually know what's good about it, which isn't because there's not a lot good about real estate. It's that, once again, the things they don't tell you, right? They just, in mainstream education, it's not part of what they teach agents, is what's good about the thing that they sell. So my whole thing has been, since the beginning, before the books, everything, you got to know what the hell you're talking about. I mean, how can you expect the customer to trust you if you don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? And so the Know Your Shit podcast was all about just knowing what the heck you're talking about. But the show has kind of morphed into not just about real estate. It's more about knowing about life, knowing about business. And what I typically do is I have people that are successful in lots of areas of business come on the show and talk about kind of what got them there, what they think the secret sauce that put them there was, and if there's any life lessons that they would have. And so it's kind of been successful entrepreneurs coming in and sharing what they think got them to where they are. And to me, that's been just a tremendous amount of fun to talk to these people, and see not only the things that are the same, but the things that they think differently about. But there are definitely, and this is one of the most amazing things, there are some very consistent things that these folks all do, and watching how consistently that they show up in every one of their lives, super interesting thing.
Well, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, Josh. You might let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, sure. So closeforlife.com is my website. That's where all my real estate classes and all my investment stuff, that stuff can be found. You can find me. Instagram is Josh D. Cadillac. Podcast, as you said, is Know Your Shit Podcast. Everywhere else, I think I'm just Josh Cadillac, or Joshua Cadillac on all the major social media platforms. And that's really where you can find me.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a million, Josh. I'll make sure I put the links both on the audio and the video.
You're the best, Roy. Thank you so much for having me on, buddy.
No problem. So That's all for the Crypto Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. Until next week, take care. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends. And you'll find all my shows with the QR code or bio.link/podcaster, as well as my podcast coaching. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com, helping people with anxiety, stress, and addictions. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if you're successful. Also, if you'd like to go on a podcasting tour, I can help you do that. And if you're interested in sponsorship, you can contact me on my bio.link/podcaster. Until next week, take care.